Hello and welcome to one more episode with me, Samer. So today we have an exciting episode. I'm gonna actually do a build with you. So I have a project in mind that one of the followers actually requested in one of my videos comments, and I thought just to do it in a different way. So what that user asked for is rebuilding a scraping tool that I showed in one of my previous videos that I created for my personal use. And this is a fully coded tool. So what I'm gonna deliver today for you is show you step by step on how I build my project. So I'm gonna prompt different AI models to give me the code. I'm gonna test it, run it, see it working, and then give you my personal tips on how you can build the same or different projects using these tools that I will show you today. And before we go ahead, if you're here to learn about how to leverage AI and technology in your career, in your business, in your day-to-day life, well, you're in the right place. My name is Samer, and on this channel, I try to help people leverage AI and technology even if they are not technical or know how to code in their everyday life. So with this, do not forget to subscribe and let's get started.
Subscribe to Daddy's channel. The mic.
The way I'm going to go about this is I'll take you through the tools that I will be using today and then tell you about my methodology to building this tool, and then we go actually to build it and test it and close. So let's start with the first one. What you're looking at here is Replit. So Replit is an IDE, which is an integrated development environment. But also, this is not only a place where you develop applications and code, this is also a place where you can deploy straight from Replit itself to the internet, whatever application you develop. So it's a very powerful tool that I use on a daily basis, especially when I'm developing either tools for myself or the kind of tools that I create for my videos. Next, we're gonna use Claude AI. And Claude, they have a model called Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the new one. And this is, if you ask me, and I think there's common agreement on this, is the best model to develop code for applications. I've tested most of them. I couldn't find anything that matches Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which in many cases gives me the perfect code from the first run. And then we have Oxylabs, So Oxylabs is a tool unique for this video, and it's not per se a tool, it's actually a platform that gives you access to proxy URLs that you can actually use to avoid certain blocks on the internet when you're using your application in a certain way. If you know Oxylabs, probably you know already what this application we're going to build today is about, but this is something we'll explain in detail in a second. And finally, last but not least, this is Postman. So Postman is a tool that you can use for so many things, but at the core of it, it's a tool to send API endpoints. So you can build an application with an endpoint and then come to Postman and test it here. Now going back to Replit. So we're going to start to build it on Replit Agent and see how that works out. And then we go to Claude AI to try to build it based on the code we get from there. Again, it will remain being developed and deployed on Replit itself. And then we're gonna test both ripples. So I'm gonna create two ripples, one based on Claude, one based on Replit Agent. And then we will test both and see who comes on top. I have my ideas, but let's see together. So here on Replit, to start building, we can simply click Create Ripple. And here we have multiple options. So we can either choose a template or create it with the agent. This is our option, or import it from GitHub. So for today, we're going to create it with the Replit agent, and we start with a prompt. Now, this is one of the most important steps. The initial prompt is very important. I'm going to show you the way I structure my prompts, and rarely it happens from the first prompt. Usually you're going to have iterations of actually prompting until you get to a version that is fully operational, debugged, ready to go and deal with different scenarios when it comes to the use case of your application. So this is the prompt that I'm going to use with the Replit agent, and I'm going to use the same exact prompt when I go to Claude AI. So the prompt says, I want to develop an application using Python on Replit. The application is intended to scrape the internet using a library like Beautiful Soup or similar. The application will be accessed through an endpoint, for example, /scrape, that is fed with comma-separated URLs, and accordingly will scrape each URL and return results in objects each separate text associated with the one of the provided URLs. So here in the prompt, I am defining the JSON object structure that I expect the response of that application to come back with. Scraped URLs, and then for each of the links I sent it, I want to receive back that scraped text separately. So later on, if I use that in automation or whatever application, I can actually separate them out. And then I want the application as well to have an optional use of residential proxies based on Oxy, which is the service I covered at the beginning of the video, that work if the proxy URL or endpoint is available to avoid blocking. I want to have authentication token to secure the endpoint while making API calls to it. I want to use Replit secret feature to store the auth token for the endpoint and the proxy URL, as both are sensitive. Include comments for each block of code explaining what it does, and include debugging steps necessary to debug and track each step operations success as intended. Keep debugging to where it is necessary only. Provide ready to paste or deployable code complete. Now, the bit I added to the end is very important. I recommend that you always ask for comment to explain what each block is doing. This is part of learning, because at the end of the day, myself and I assume you are not a developer. So as we do these things, we get to understand a little bit the code that we're creating through these AI tools. So later on, we can improve it, enhance it, pivot it if we want to change something, or even debug ourselves. Once you understand what each block does within your code, you have a different level of ability of using such AI tools to create things. So this is an important one. And the other one is debugging. So when you run the application in the terminal or in the console, it will start showing you some of the outputs of the application running. So if you ask it for debugging steps, you can tell at which stage the application is working or failing. And that again will help you later on to fix problems in your code that you got from AI. And what debugging does is, once you get these results in the console as the application is running, if you get errors, failures, you can actually feed back that content to the AI model again, so it will understand what is happening in the code it provided you with, so it can fix its own problems. So with this prompt, we are ready to start building. I'm gonna hit start building. It will take a little while and we'll go back when it's ready. So let's hit start building, and you can see it will take some time to create the structure for the code and basically give you options to what to develop. And after that, it will start building. It will take a little while, but I'll get back to you when it's already complete and having my first version of the code right out of the Replit agent. So this is one of the things I love about Replit agent. The first response you always get is certain options before it starts developing the code. So here, what basically it tells me, do you want me to build the prototype based on my prompt, or would you like to add certain features? So it's based on the understanding of the prompt. Replit agent is suggesting certain features for me. So one of them, do you want to add rate limiting to prevent abuse? I will not do that for today. Implement concurrent scraping for multiple URLs. That's also interesting. I could add it in the future. Add support for custom scraping rules per domain. Create a simple dashboard to monitor scraping statistics. So all of them are great things to add into the tool. Today I have a running tool, by the way, like this. I don't have any of those. Basically, I just want to scrape URLs. So I'm not going to add any of them. Again, to make it equivalent and comparable to whatever we get out of Claude. And with this, I'll click Approve Plan and Start. And once the code is ready, I will get back to you so we can go through what we got and we try to deploy it. And you can see the amazing way how the user interface on Replit works. You feel like this is a futuristic type of agent working for you coding. Just to give you an update, what I can see it's doing, it's actually developed the code and it ran it. So it created, basically it pushed an endpoint request and it got a failure. And then it modified the code and it's testing itself the endpoint for me. So last time I used Replit agent, this didn't happen. And this is really amazing. You can see here the status of each request that is taking place. So it did a post, and this is for some reason a get. It got a 404 here, it got a 200 here, which is a success. And if you look down here, it's still developing the code. And the other interesting thing, it didn't just put the code for me. It actually went and installed the packages for me. So usually it used to give me the code, and then once I run it, all these packages get installed. Now it's doing all of that for me. This is what it showed me. I didn't add any authentication. I didn't add any URL for the Oxylabs proxy, but it gave me basically the / scrape endpoint. Scrape content from specified URLs requires authentication. The name, okay, web scraping API, and this is the version for the application. So the application is running. Even created kind of a logo or an icon for the application, which is very interesting. And you can see already the application is running. And the last time it tested, it got 2 successful responses, meaning it is the final result and it believes it's working now. So let's start going through what it delivered, and then we actually go and test this on Postman. So let's start with app.py, and anything with .py basically is a Python code file. This is basically the libraries or the packages it needs to install to run this program. So we have the Flask, which is the endpoint basically, the request, JSONify, okay, because we're dealing with JSON bodies, require an API token, web scraper, validate URL, scraper error, config. So configuration logging. So this is basically the logging of the process that we requested to be part of the code to log at each phase. And then it goes to the application, different type of errors and what kind of message to return if that error happens. So for example, for this one, no valid URLs are provided. So basically, if we provide it with URLs that doesn't exist or don't work, we get this error. Okay, what else? And it has a step to validate each URL, make sure that's a working URL. Initialize scraper with proxy if requested. So I think it developed, I wanted it to do it as an option. So basically, if the proxy URL is there, it will use it. If not, it will not. What I think it did, it developed the endpoint where I specify in my request if I want to use the proxy or not. And this is an interesting way to look at it. And then it will do the actual scraping. So it will call the scraping function. And it did that in different files on this application. So let's go to auth.py, which is clearly from the name, it's the authentication. So this is requesting the API authentication for this app. And also it will log the errors and the debugging if that authentication is either wrong or not there. I requested that all of these things are provided in the secret section. So if we go down here in the tools menu in Replit and we click at secrets, it actually created that Flask secret key. So you can see it here. There's a key if I show it. So this is the key actually I need to put into my request. So that was created for me, which is amazing outcome. I think the last time I used Replit, it wasn't at this level. So let's go to config.py. This is the configuration. And this is talking about the proxy URL and the API token. So it didn't create the proxy URL in the secret. So I'll have to add it myself, which is fine. And it's here mentioning in the comments, and you can see the value of these comments. Optional proxy configurations. So I'm gonna actually go into secrets later on and add, and then we can go to the main.py. Okay, this is just running the Flask, the endpoint basically. So I can communicate with it from the internet, from external sources like Postman. This is scraper.py, which is the scraping application itself. And this is what uses Beautiful Soup, which is one of the well-known libraries to scrape. And this is using something called headless browser to basically access the URL you provide it with and then try to grasp all the content from it. So this is the application. Again, if you're not happy with the level of comments, so here it didn't put lots of comments, but definitely you can prompt the agent here and ask it to add more comments for this file just to explain step by step what this application is doing. But we can see it's using Beautiful Soup and it will get us a response based on what it parsed from that URL. And then it created a file called testapi.py, and basically this is how to run the test. So I was intending to do it on Postman. What this is doing, this is the code basically it used to test itself, which is an amazing thing to look at it. And from what I see here, this is an application that will modify and fix the URLs if they are not really clean once we provide them in the API request. So all in all, I'm honestly hesitant to give it a 10 out of 10 until I use Claude. In the past, I would have used Claude first and actually never used the agent. This one is a big surprise for me. I think it's something they've done something to the Replit agent, and it's 10 times better than anytime I've tested it before. So to test this, let's go and create. So I want to show you how to create the Oxy URL. It's one service I am using. You can use whatever you like in terms of residential URLs. And what this does is actually gets this application to use an IP address which is identified as a residential proxy or residential IP. So the URLs it goes to will not detect it as a scraper and will not block it from accessing the information, which will minimize the cases where you don't return any results because basically the provider of that information is blocking your access. So we'll do that. We'll create the URL for the proxy endpoint. We'll create the secret here. We'll add it. We'll rerun the application and then we'll test it on Postman. So if we go to Oxylabs, again, this is the way this works. So you can add a user to a workspace. Now I use this service personally because I can use the pay as you go feature. So I don't use this a lot. So I want to have the ability to just charge it with some credit and use it for a long time until I need more credit and just I'll refill it. And by the way, for Oxylabs, I just charged it with $16 long time back, and I'm not even close to using 10% of that credit. And this is a straightforward process. So you create a user. Again, a user could be something that you use for a certain application. You give it a username, you give it a password. I'm going to delete this user after this video, but I created it abc123 equals abc456 just for ease. And I'll create proxy user here. Let's give it a second. So now we have the proxy user created. So now that we have the proxy user created, what we can do is create the endpoint that we will take back to Replit. So for the region, I wanted global. This is an endpoint. And then I wanted based on a user, specific user. So here I select this user I created, which is the scraping test. And I have to enter the password that we just created, which is ABC123 ABC456. And you can see my password is here. My username is here. It's all part of this endpoint URL. And I can copy this right from here. And then I have it working. I can add certain information, other details. You can actually work with an AI model to understand all of these things. But as far as I'm concerned, I have my endpoint. So I'll go back to Replit and then I will go to secrets again. And I'll have to add a new secret. The value for this secret will be the URL I just got, and I can make it visible here so you can see it. So you can see I have the username, the password, everything else, the port. This is a URL that will take all information through Oxylabs, and then Oxylabs will do the rerouting for me and will return the information for me. Now, before I put the key for this secret, let's go back to app.py, or I think it's in auth. No, it's in config. This is the name I should use for that, or the key I should use for that secret, proxy underscore URL. So I'll copy it, go back to secrets, and then hit add secret. So now I've added the proxy URL. If you are not, again, technical and you don't know how to test it, you can simply ask the Replit agent or the AI model you're using to how to build that request to test this. So I will give it a prompt and I'll show you what we get based on the application, and then we'll go to Postman and test it. Now that we have everything from authentication token, proxy URL, and the application that as per the server here is fully functional. We need to do, before we actually test it, to do stop, because we have added the proxy URL now and we rerun it. So that part, the new secret at least, will be part of the code now, and it will be part of the deployed application. So we can test it fully based on proxy URLs. So let's hit run one more time, and it's running successfully. So let's go and ask Replit agent how to test this on Postman. So I gave it a very simple prompt. I want to test this application on Postman. Give me the full URL, method, headers, and parameters to test this application. And we hit enter. And now it will tell us exactly step by step, what to include in the request and how to test it. And we'll see if it works. So you can see here, it gave us the step. Now, the link it's referring to is the actual local host type of link, which will not work with Postman. What we need to do is actually, again, this is the beautiful thing about Replit, take the link that we get out of Replit deployment and copy that just before the / scrape. This is the access to the endpoint. We can do that here, and I'll show you how in a second. But essentially, it's telling us it's a post request, and it's giving us content type application JSON. These are the headers of the request. XAPI token is the default secret token, so the token we have in the secrets that I have to get. And then in the JSON body, it's basically two keys and values. One of them is the URLs. So it actually gave me a URL to test out. I'll check it before I test it. And then the other key and the value, are we using the proxy, yes or no? And here it's false. We're going to use it the first time as a true, and we'll see how that works. So to get the URL here to test, actually we can go to the web view, and if we click here, you will get this URL. Now you'll have to add it just after it, after the last backslash, we'll have to add scrape. So let's copy this now, and let's go to Postman. We'll paste the URL here. We'll add scrape. And as it told us, it's a post method. Now we need to add the headers here. So we will go and check what headers the Replit agent asked us to add. So we have the content type application JSON. So copy the whole thing, go back to Postman, add it in the key, cut this one again. So you don't keep the hyphens, just put the first part and the second part. This is the key and the value. The value is application JSON. Let's go take the second one, which is XAPI token. We'll copy that. We'll go back to Postman. We'll put it here. And then what we do is we go here, we go to secrets, and this is the secret key. We'll have to copy this one. Actually, we can copy it just by clicking this one here. We go back to Postman. This is the value. And then we go to the body, and this type of body is raw. And if we go back to the Replit agent, again, it tells you it's raw JSON. What we do is just we simply copy the whole thing here, and we go and paste it here. And let's put this as true. I wanted to try to use the proxy for this one. Now, just to make sure this is working, it might not be working. So we have two links here. Let's go and click them. So if I go here to the agent, let's click this one, see what we get. So this is already a not found, and we'll click the second one, and this is not found. So it gave me already not found URLs as an example, I guess. I'm gonna still test it and see what we get. We should get the debugging response into the API call response, and then we'll replace those two URLs with different working URLs that we can see online. So let's send the request and see what we get back. So we'll hit send here, and you can see it's an invalid API token. So that's interesting. So let me go check what's wrong with this, and I'll come back to fix it here. So let's go back to headers. So I used the XAPI token that in theory it is the one that is referring to in the secrets. So let me go to the code here, and let me ask it. I think it made a mistake. I think this should be referred to as X or XAPI key. I'll just ask it based on the error I got. So if I go back to the agent, I told it I received the below. Is the secret Flask secret key is the code to use for XAPI key? So basically I'm asking it, does this actually work with what you're asking for as an authentication for the endpoint? Let's see how it responds. So it gave me a response that doesn't answer my question, honestly. So again, I'm mentioning to it, in secrets, you called it Flask _ secret _ key and not XAPI token. Shall I fix the name in secrets? Please check code and advise if naming is an issue. So basically I'm asking it to go through all the code and the secret and check if there's the naming convention of the authentication token is a problem or not, and if I should fix it just straight into secrets and change the name. So now it answered me, and it's asking me to change the name here to API token. So this is what basically is included in the config file, which I should have went and checked there. But again, I want to show you how it works, at least, if you know nothing about code and you're working with an AI model. So let's try to do that. Let's paste the proper name here. So I have to click here, edit, API token. This is what's telling me. This is what's mentioned in the config file. And then I can say update secret. So now it should be working. So let's stop the application, run it again. So it's running now. Let's go back to Postman and do a request one more time. Excellent. So it's working now. So we have a result. So you can see, as I defined it as the initial prompt to bring back each URL with the content it has. And what it did here is gave back that each of these URLs failed to scrape the content. We know that these are not proper URLs. We tested them. So the overall request was a success, meaning that we sent a certain information to the application and it returned a response. So that's a success. So if you use an application or an automation on Zapier, Make, or whatever you're doing, you can actually use this in the future to get that kind of status of the application and then the content you want. And the reason I always go back to the console to see what happened within the application, not only as a response. So if you look at all of this, we have the URL scraping failed. We know that's the case because these URLs are not real. And then what is interesting is that the proxy failed as well. And it's giving me a detailed response that the proxy needs authentication. That didn't happen. Now, what I assumed that in secrets, the URL that we provide in the proxy here has the username and password for the created endpoint within this URL. So it should work, should be authenticated automatically. Something didn't work. Let me go just to Oryx, fix it. Maybe I didn't deploy that endpoint, that's why, and we'll test again. So I asked the Replit agent about why the proxy failed, and it was a very simple issue where the URL that I got from Oxy and I put in the secret didn't start with HTTPS, which should be the case, or HTTP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this again, show the value here, and you can see this is where it starts and there's no HTTP. So what I will do is I will just add it. So this is HTTP -- and then I will update the secret. I will stop, I will run again. Let's go test one more time. And again, the URLs will fail because they're not real, but we'll go back to the console and see if the proxy now is working. So let's do another request. And again, it's a success. So if we go back to the console and we see what we've got, and it's a success. So this request worked flawlessly. We got the response, no issues with the proxy. So everything is good. So now let's just go and get a URL that is working and test it with this API call and Postman. So I will test two URLs. One of them is from my own website, which is givemethemic.official.com, that you can go check out. It has lots of good information about AI and other things, and some information about my channel and all the videos you can see there. And also we're going to check json.org. So this is the official website for the JSON standard, something basically you can build no application without understanding a JSON object. And it's really nice to go through and understand how that standard works, how it goes into applications. So we're going to take both URLs. Let's copy the first one. This is the JSON. Go to Postman and we'll go to the body. And this is our first URL that we're gonna take here. And then I'll go get on sites URL and go to Postman here. So now we should get the scraped content from both these sites. So let's hit send, and we received an error. I'm gonna keep my own site and then I'm gonna run it again. So now let's run it again and see what we get. So what we got is again one more error for my website, which I know is not blocked. What I suspected, it is something that was created by the application. And what I've done is I went back to Replit, to the agent. I asked it, why am I getting a certain error? And here, if you can see, it responded that part of this application, it actually created a limited number of domains that we can scrape. So if you want to put that into your application, which is a nice thing to have, honestly. But what I've done is I simply asked it, can we change that in code to allow any URL? And it did the modification for me. Again, this is amazing in Replit Agent. So it did the modifications for me and stopped the application, rerun it. Now it's working. So I will try to test it one more time in front of you. If it works, we're going to add the other URL and the JSON one and see if both also are working, because this is something I thought it was blocked by json.org. Apparently it's not. It was something within the application that we created. So let me send again the same request one more time and see what we get. Now this is only for my website and it worked. So you can see here everything is scraped from my website, the blog, the meta description, everything. It took everything, even the title, the body, everything is scraped. So let's go back to the JSON URL. Copy it. I just want to see multiple URLs being scraped at the same time. So we'll just here at the end add a comma and then add the second URL And let's send one more request and see it scraped. And again, this is working. So this is the first result. If you can see here, let me just make it bigger. So this is my website scraped. So let's just scroll down. This is my blog and this is JSON. So it scraped all the URLs, the links inside it, also the text also that's available on that first page. There's an image, though that's not part of the scraping here. This is just purely scraping text. Again, this is Beautiful Soup and how it works. So basically we have an operational scraper that now I can deploy on Replit itself and start using in my automations and in my workflow wherever I want it. It's my own scraping application. I can improve it, modify it, do more things with it. This is the power of using AI and these kind of tools, because it does something that maybe doesn't fit the use case that you have and the available tools online. And definitely it is fraction of the cost. If you use, the more you use actually Replit and these things, the cheaper the usage gets compared to buying that service from a third-party tool. So excellent, we have the tool working fully on Replit. Now we're gonna go and create a new REPL, and we're gonna prompt Claude to give us the same code and see how that works out. Now we're back on Replit, so let me stop the application and let's go back home. And here we're gonna create a new Replit, and that will be based on a template. It's gonna be a new one. So I named it Sonnet Scrape Test, and I selected a Python template, and we can hit create REPL. So that will be simply an empty test here that is having no code. So now we'll have to go back to Claude. So this is Claude. This is a blank chat with Claude. And again, I make sure that the model selected is 3.5 Sonnet new, and we'll just paste in the same prompt that we gave to the Replit agent. I would add certain things to minimize the errors and the debugging we did on Replit, but just to compare this, I'm going to start with the same kind of prompt and see the quality of the response as we move it to Replit and run it there and see how that goes. So let's hit submit, and you can see it started generating the code for me. I don't know if it will do it in a similar fashion to Replit agent, putting that in different files or putting the whole thing in one file. We'll have to wait and see. So if we look at what we got everything in one file. Now it's asking me how to work it through into Replit itself. So to create a Python REPL, install dependencies. This is never needed because automatically when you run the application on Replit, it will do all of these things for you. This is why this tool is beautiful. And then you'll have to add those secrets. It's telling you these secrets, and it's optional again, the proxy URL. And then it's giving you the endpoint that you can use to test this application. So let's simply copy the code that we got here, go back to Replit, and here this is main.py. We'll just hit paste. So that's our code. Let's go to secrets. And here on secrets, we'll just add the two secrets that Claude asked us to add. So the first one, let's go back to Claude just to make sure we don't miss anything. This is the auth token. So this is the auth token. Now for the value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take the same one we used for the previous application. So I can just test with the same request, just modify it a little bit in Postman. So what I will do is go back to Postman, go to the headers. So this is the value of the previous authentication we used. So I just copy it, go back to Replit, paste it here, add the secret. Now we go back to Claude. Second one that we need is the proxy URL. So I'll just go here, create a new secret, proxy URL. For the value, again, I'm gonna copy the same URL that we had in the previous REPL created by Replit agent, and we'll paste it here so we can view it if you want. So this is the same one, and we add that secret. In theory, once we hit run now, this should work, and then we can go and test it. But remember, we need to change the URL because this is a different REPL, so it comes with a different URL. So let's hit run and see what we get. And again, you can see here, the comments are there and the debugging is all in one place. So it's running, it's installing the libraries, and the application is up and running. So that's fine because this has no HTML, so there's no real web view. What we need out of this is actually clicking at this link, copying the URL here, and with this, let's go back to Postman. The only thing we need to change is this URL here. So if we remove it, we paste, so we have the new URL, and we can now test it. Now let me just cross-check the way it gave me the testing. So it has the examples, the authentication it included as a bearer, and then the authentication token. So I need to also change the header. So this is an authentication header, and then bearer space, and then the token. So see, these differences are important. So let me go to Postman again, and I'll just add bearer here. And this I'll need to call it as authentication. Let me just copy the key value here. I'll go back to Postman. I'll change this as authentication. In theory, everything is working. Content type, application JSON, this is a standard. So let me hit send and see what we get. So I got an error because I think in this new application by Claude, the body doesn't have this kind of use proxy true or false. This was added by the Replit agent when I requested for this application. This did it differently. So let me just in case go back at Claude and look at the request, and you can see the request only includes the URLs, and that's it, nothing else. But to be perfectly clear, I can ask it, Claude, basically to give me the body structure for the API request. Once I did that, actually it gave me the structure. So it has options: remove scripts, true or false, remove styles, timeout, and then use proxy, true or false, which is very interesting. Now, just by asking for that, it added it. So it was part of the code. Apparently, I just made the wrong structure for the body. And then the comma separated URLs are here. And what it did after that, it actually modified the code for me to go and replace the existing that includes all of this thing. So let me just go with the most recent code that I have from Claude. I'll just copy it, go back to my REPL, and paste it here. So again, I can now stop and run that one more time. Now you can see it's running. So I got a 404 here. I don't know why, but let's go back to Claude and see the example request it gave us. So authorization bearer, and then the token, content type, application JSON, which we had already. And then this is the format of the body, the raw body for the request. I'll just copy that. And what I'm going to do here, I'll just take the original URLs from here that we had, copy them, paste them here. And then all of this previous part I can actually delete. So we have the options: remove script, remove styles true, and then timeout and use proxy true. So let me just use it as it is and see what we get. So let's run the request here and see if we get errors or we get scraped content. So I'm getting an HTTP 404 request when running the code. I think this is related to the Flask. So I'll go back to Claude and I'll copy actually this error. I'll simply provide it with the error and make sure I have the complete code, because sometimes it tends to give you just the modified part. I think it gave me the complete error, but something is missing here. So this is what I prompted it now. I tested the endpoint and got the below error. Please make sure code is complete, ready to paste and deploy with sufficient debugging to know what is going wrong and in which part. And this is basically the response I got from Postman. And I'll just send it to Claude and see what we get in terms of response. So I noticed the issue, the URLs are being treated as a single URL with a comma. Let's fix this code and add more comprehensive debugging to help track issues. So it identified one issue. Apparently it was accepting a single URL, not multiple. Now it added the ability to deal with multiple URLs with commas. So let me just get the new code, use it, run it on Replit, and see if this time it works. It gave me the complete code now with the Flask and everything. So let me copy it and I'll go back to Replit here. I'll just remove the old one, paste the new one, and then start running again. It's giving me a 404 again. So let me test it in Postman before I make any judgments. So let's hit send. Let's see if this time it works. So I got the same error. Let me go back to Replit, check out the console here. So looking at the console again, proxy is working and it got one of them. But again, it returned an error because one of them didn't work. So I need to know why one of them didn't work, because in the Replit agent one, both worked eventually. So what I can do here simply is copy this whole chunk that I got back from the Replit console based on the Claude code. And I'll take this whole thing here and then share it with Claude. So apparently there's still an issue on how the application is dealing with URLs. So it gave me a revised code to use and then a way to test it. So let me go to the code, copy it, go back to Replit again, stop the application, look at the whole thing now, remove it and replace it with the new code, run it now, and see what we get. We're still getting a 404 when I run it for the first time. I don't know why. I can check it actually. Let's try to fix this before I move to the next steps. So here what I've done is I copied what I get in the console when I run the application for the first time, including the 404 that you can see at the bottom. I'm just asking, is this normal? Is this okay to have in the first time you run an application? Usually you get to 200 that the application, at least the Flask, is successfully deployed. So let's see what Claude helps us with here. So it's saying, yes, that's perfectly normal, should have no issue. So the 404 error you're seeing is normal because by default Flask application log or request. Okay, so basically it's something fine, no issues there. Again, I'm not a coder, so there's no shame in learning these things while working with AI, and this is how I learn. A year back, I started with no knowledge. Today, I think I do more than the average person can do when it comes to developing applications, just by following this process you're seeing on the screen. I know this is a long video. I hope you watch it just to learn the process. So let me try again to send a request one more time, see if this new method that it put together solved the problem, and it did not. Let me go back again actually to the test that it provided, Claude provided, just to make sure that the testing code or the testing process in terms of body and other elements is proper. So, okay, this is the URL. This is the application, JSON, content type, authorization, bearer, your authentication, okay. And then then do a print. I noticed something. So the way this is taking the URLs, actually the quotation marks are circulating each URL separately. And this is not how we're doing the Postman test. So if you see, we just have it in the beginning and at the end. Well, let's test it by adding the quotation marks again here and see if it works, because that could be the driver of the error. If it works, later on we can modify the application just to take it in this way, because usually within the application that you create on automation, it's just easier to provide URLs with comma separated without anything else. So let's do a send here after modifying this request, and it worked. So the whole issue we're going back and forth was an issue in the structure. I didn't notice the small tweak where you have to have each separate URL within its own quotations rather than one at the beginning and at the end of the comma separated URL string. And if I take this up a little bit, so this is my own website. So this is the script. So you have the whole blog content here of my own website. And then this is all the content of the JSON and the URLs of json.org website. So now we have two applications created, both fully functional, one made on Replit and one made on Claude. So honestly, looking back at the build that we made, the intention of this video is not just to give you that application. I'm happy to share the templates with you if you want to have that. I'll actually include them in a link in the description below, both codes for the scraping tool, so you can fork it, modify it, improve it if you want. And for me, if you ask me, I was surprised by the Replit agent quality and the way it did things. And looking at, even when I worked with Sonnet 3.5, it took me a couple of iterations until I did it. And to be fair to Claude, part of it was my error in making the request on Postman. In the future, probably after seeing what I've seen with Replit agent, I'm gonna do more with Replit agent rather than Claude. And do not be surprised if in the back end of Replit agent, it's using Claude Sonnet 3.5 as one of the models it uses to develop the code. So both are amazing tools. And I think you have to try build using both AIs, even using OpenAI or One Preview. Each one of them will have a different strength and weakness in different types of scenarios. Once you have that understanding, it will help you be more efficient in building applications. But again, the core concept of this video is that if you are not a technology person, if you're not a coder, I am not, you can actually invest little time working with AI tools like the one we've seen today and build sophisticated applications that could help you in creating systems, solving problems like the scraping one here, and building applications that you would have probably never been able to build in the past without having access to AI. And if you're still watching, thank you very much. I hope you got value out of it. do not forget to hit that subscribe button. It will support me a lot. It will support this small channel grow. Write a comment, like, and share this video with others who you think are like-minded. They are like us, not the perfect technology person or coder. They want to join this new era of technology and artificial intelligence. They want to do more. They want to empower their careers, their businesses, and their life in general. And with this, thank you for watching and goodbye.
Subscribe to Daddy's channel. Give me the mic.